Hi guys, it's Mark Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, also known as Mark Zicree of Space Command, and there's going to be a lot of announcements coming very soon about Space Command, but I wanted to talk a little more about Star Trek Discovery before I ultimately do my review of Episode 9 and so on and so forth. I was thinking about science fiction and this show in particular, because it certainly polarized a lot of the fan community, but it is seemingly a success as they've renewed it for a third season. It seems to be getting better. So I want to talk about willing suspension of disbelief. Now, the reason I titled it Willing Suspendering of Disbelief, I'll get to in a moment, but let me tell you what willing suspension of disbelief is. Basically, in order to watch almost any TV show or movie, you have to suspend your disbelief. This is particularly true of science fiction and fantasy and horror too, but it's really true of anything that you watch on TV and film that's fictional, because you're buying into the fiction, even though it may be actors you've seen in other roles, even though you're aware that there's actually a crew and a camera and all these people, this army of people on the other side of the actor, so the actor might seem like they're alone, but in reality they're with a whole bunch of people to make the TV show or movie. So you're deliberately choosing to ignore certain things you know to be taken into the story. And with science fiction, this is even more true, because you have to accept that that guy with stuff glued on his face is an alien rather than a human, or that they're on a spaceship instead of just a set or a room. And so this is, it's willing suspension of disbelief. And but it's funny, because when I was an editor on the Twilight Zone magazine, Carol Serling was an editor as well, and she asked me to educate her about science fiction. And I said, well, one of the key things about science fiction is willing suspension of disbelief. And I explained what it meant to her, just like I just explained it to you. And later, Carol referred to it as willing suspendering of disbelief, having not quite gotten the exact right phrase. So that's why, so all the fans who say, the fact that I titled this Willing Suspendering of Disbelief, they'll be saying, why don't you know what you're talking about? You got it wrong, you're a moron. Well, maybe you guys should watch the video rather than just, typing some comment off of something before I explain it. So, not to judge, not to comment, just a word to the wise. But in terms of Star Trek Discovery, this is what I wanted to mention, which is, I first saw the original Star Trek when I was 10, and as a result, things that if I saw it now, fresh, with fresh eyes, I might totally reject out of hand. The female crew members in mini dresses, which is great, or the lizard man, it's in Arena and so forth, the Gorn, or Spock with little rubber pointed ears. As an adult, I might have said, coming to that fresh, wow, that's really sucks. But as a kid, I went right into that. I believed all of it. It was wonderful. So with Star Trek Discovery, I think many of us are hypercritical and not buying into the story, not buying into the magic of science fiction and fantasy in this regard, and this show. And part of it is, yes, some of the characters are very inconsistent, some of the storylines have enormous holes in them. In terms of canon, it seems to be violating a lot that's been established over the years in Star Trek. But again, for each of us, there's the question of whether we're going to buy into something or not, and that's a personal decision on every TV show, every movie, and we, in some cases we watch and we go, well, that was just terrible. In some cases we go, well, this is great. This is going to be one of my favorite movies or TV shows. But I guess what I'm talking about here is that as science fiction fans, we're taking the ride with a lot of things that other people would reject out of hand because they seem ridiculous. If you aren't into science fiction, you are not going to buy into most of what we as science fiction fans accept as a matter of course. So I guess what I'm saying is that tolerance is a good idea, and one person's cup of tea, Earl Grey, may be someone else's poison. And but that's just my thought about it. So again, with Star Trek Discovery, it's very funny when I'm critical of it. People say I'm trying to kill the show so that Doug Jones will come back to Space Command. And then when I'm kind, they're saying, well, you're just trying to lure this actress who played the robot girl to be in Space Command. So it's so the reality is that I'm just trying to say my honest opinions. And Doug was great to work with. I think if I get to work with Hannah Cheeseman, it'll be great fun. I love actors. I love working with actors. But I'm not making any any anticipation of the future other than my goodwill and my good work. And so far, so good. So that's it for now. But I just kind of want to chime in about this whole notion of good show versus bad show versus whatever. I'll be soon posting my review of the next episode of Star Trek Discovery. I'm going to start watching The Orville. I have been watching season 3 of The Expanse and had lunch with my friend Mark Fergus, who with his partner Hawk Ostby brought The Expanse to television and is an executive producer on that show. So there's lots to talk about very soon, plus lots of stuff related to Space Command and beyond. So watch this space, and we'll talk again really soon. Bye, guys.